Most people think they fail because they're lazy. The truth? Motivation is a trap. You wait to feel inspired before acting, but feelings are unreliable. Real change doesn't come from bursts of emotion. It comes from systems, habits, and tiny actions repeated daily. Stop chasing sparks. Build the engine. Every year, millions of people promise themselves that this time will be different. This time they will wake up early. This time they will go to the gym consistently. This time they will build the business, learn the skill, save the money, change their life. And almost every year the pattern repeats. A few days of excitement, a burst of effort, then silence, then excuses, then the quiet return to old habits. Most people think the problem is laziness. It isn't. The real problem is far more deceptive. It is the belief that motivation is the key to success. Motivation feels powerful. It feels like energy flowing through your body. When you watch an inspiring video or hear a powerful speech, your heart beats faster. Your mind fills with big visions. You imagine the future version of yourself, confident, disciplined, successful. In that moment, you feel unstoppable. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Motivation is an emotional high. And like every emotional high, it crashes. Motivation is not a strategy. It is a feeling, and feelings are unstable. You don't control when you feel motivated. Sometimes it appears randomly. Sometimes it disappears without warning. It depends on your mood, your sleep, your stress level, your environment, even the weather. If your progress depends on something that unstable, then your progress will always be unstable. That is why motivation is a scam. Not because it never exists, not because it never helps, but because it tricks you into believing that you need it before you act. Think about how most people approach change. They wait. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until Monday. They wait until next month. They wait until the perfect time. They tell themselves that when motivation comes, then they will begin. But the truth is brutal. If you wait for motivation, you will wait forever. The most dangerous part of motivation is not that it disappears. It is that it gives you a false sense of progress. When you feel motivated, you plan. You write goals. You reorganize your room. You download productivity apps. You watch more videos about self-improvement. And your brain rewards you for it. You get dopamine from the idea of improvement, not from actual improvement. You feel productive without producing anything. That is the scam. Your brain cannot easily distinguish between imagining success and building success. When you picture your future in vivid detail, your brain releases small rewards. It makes you feel closer to the goal than you really are. So instead of taking difficult action, you keep consuming more inspiration, more motivation, more content. You become addicted to the feeling of starting, but not the discipline of continuing. Real progress is repetitive. It is boring. It is often invisible. It does not feel powerful. It feels ordinary. And because it feels ordinary, most people underestimate it. Motivation is dramatic. Discipline is quiet. Motivation says, change your life today. Discipline says, repeat the small action every day. Motivation demands intensity. Discipline demands consistency. The world celebrates intensity because it looks impressive. A massive gym session. An all-night work grind. A sudden decision to quit everything and start over. These moments look powerful on social media. They create stories. They create drama. But they rarely create long-term results. Consistency does. And consistency does not care about your feelings. If you rely on motivation, you will only act when you feel good. But life is not designed to make you feel good every day. Some days you will be tired. Some days you will be stressed. Some days you will doubt yourself. If your system collapses every time your mood shifts, then your goals will always collapse with it. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not constantly motivated. In fact, many of them feel resistance almost daily. The difference is simple. They act anyway. They do not ask, do I feel like it? They ask, is this scheduled? They remove emotion from the decision. That is what most people misunderstand. Success is less about intensity and more about structure. Structure protects you from your own moods. It reduces the number of decisions you have to make. It turns important behaviors into defaults instead of debates. When something becomes a default, it no longer requires motivation. It requires compliance. Imagine brushing your teeth. You do not wait to feel inspired. You do not watch motivational videos about dental hygiene. You do it because it is automatic. It is built into your identity and routine. That is the power of systems. They eliminate the need for emotional negotiation. But when it comes to big goals, fitness, business, studying, financial growth, most people rely on emotional negotiation every single day. Should I go? Should I start? Maybe tomorrow. Every decision becomes a battle, and the more battles you fight internally, the more exhausted you become. Motivation does not remove friction. Systems do. If you want to wake up early, motivation will tell you to set 5 alarms and listen to a powerful speech before bed. A system will tell you to sleep at a fixed time. Put your phone away and place your alarm across the room. One relies on emotion. The other redesigns the environment. If you want to exercise consistently, motivation will make you feel guilty and intense. A system will schedule fixed days, prepare clothes in advance, and reduce the effort required to start. The secret is not pushing yourself harder. It is making the right action easier. Motivation says, become a different person. Systems say, design better conditions. This is where the real shift happens. When you stop trying to feel powerful and start trying to remove friction, everything changes. Because progress is not about how strongly you start. It is about how little you stop. Most people quit because they overestimate what they can do in 1 week and underestimate what they can do in 1 year. Motivation encourages overestimation. It pushes extreme goals. It creates unrealistic standards. And when you fail to meet them, you feel discouraged. Then you conclude that you lack discipline. But the truth is simpler. You relied on emotion instead of structure. Motivation is exciting at the beginning. Discipline is boring in the middle. Success happens in the middle. The middle is where nothing feels dramatic. No applause, no visible transformation, just repetition, just small improvements stacking quietly. This phase filters everyone. The motivated leave, the disciplined remain. And that is why motivation is a scam. It convinces you that change should feel powerful. But real change feels ordinary. Let's break down exactly how to replace motivation with systems, how to build identity-based habits, and how to design a structure that works even on your worst days. Because those are the days that truly decide your future. If motivation is unreliable, then the obvious question becomes, what replaces it? The answer is not more willpower. It is not forcing yourself harder. It is not waiting for the perfect morning routine. What replaces motivation is structure. What replaces emotion is design. The people who win long-term do not wake up inspired every day. They wake up with a system that runs, whether they feel inspired or not. And the first shift you must make is understanding that discipline is not about intensity. It is about reducing decision-making. Every time you decide whether to act, you drain energy. When you wake up and debate going to the gym, you lose energy. When you sit at your desk and debate starting your work, you lose energy. When you consider studying but scroll instead, you lose energy. Decision fatigue is invisible, but it destroys consistency. A system removes the debate. Instead of asking yourself daily whether you should act, you pre-decide once. You schedule the behavior. You attach it to a time and location. You remove alternatives. Action becomes the default. This is why high performers obsess over routines, not because routines are glamorous, but because routines protect them from themselves. There's another layer most people ignore, identity. Motivation focuses on outcomes. Systems focus on identity. Motivation says, I want to get fit. Identity says, I am someone who trains. Motivation says, I want to build a business. Identity says, I'm someone who builds daily. When your behavior aligns with identity, it becomes easier to repeat. When it only aligns with a temporary goal, it becomes easier to quit. Most people attempt massive change without changing identity. They try to run 5 kilometers on the first day when they have not yet become the type of person who respects small daily movement. They attempt to work 8 hours straight when they have not trained their focus for even 30 minutes. They chase intensity instead of alignment. Identity is built through evidence, and evidence is built through small wins. If you complete 1 small action daily, you collect proof. Proof reshapes identity. Identity reshapes behavior. Behavior reshapes results. This cycle is quiet. It is not dramatic. It does not create viral moments, but it creates permanence. The second principle is friction. Human behavior follows the path of least resistance. If distraction is easier than progress, distraction will win. If comfort is easier than growth, comfort will win. You cannot rely on motivation to overpower friction every day. You must redesign friction itself. If you want to read more, place the book on your desk and move your phone away. If you want to study, prepare the material before the session begins. If you want to reduce scrolling, remove the apps or add barriers. Every small environmental shift reduces the willpower required. The goal is not to become stronger than temptation. The goal is to make temptation weaker than your setup. Motivation tells you to fight your environment. Systems tell you to redesign it. There's also the rule of minimum viable action. Most people fail because they start too big. They aim for perfection immediately. They demand extreme output from an untrained system. Then, when they cannot sustain it, they collapse entirely. Instead of aiming for 1 hour, aim for 10 minutes. Instead of demanding perfection, demand consistency. A small action done daily is infinitely more powerful than a large action done occasionally. Consistency compounds. Intensity burns out. You may think small actions are insignificant. They are not. They build neural pathways. They build familiarity. They reduce resistance. The hardest part of any task is starting. When you shrink the start, you increase repetition. And repetition is the real engine of transformation. Another truth most people avoid is emotional tolerance. You must train yourself to act while feeling uncomfortable. Waiting to feel confident is a trap. Waiting to feel ready is a trap. Growth requires movement in imperfect emotional states. Some days you will feel tired. Act anyway. Some days you will feel doubtful. Act anyway. Some days you will feel bored. Act anyway. This is not about ignoring your health or pushing to extremes. It is about understanding that emotions fluctuate. If your standards fluctuate with them, your life will fluctuate too. High performers separate feelings from standards. The standard remains. The mood changes. There is also the danger of motivation culture itself. Endless consumption of inspirational content creates a cycle of dependency. You feel low, you consume motivation. You feel high, you promise change. You act briefly, you stop. You feel low again. Then you repeat the cycle. It becomes emotional entertainment disguised as self-improvement. Real self-improvement is often quiet and private. It does not need constant external stimulation. It needs repetition. Ask yourself an honest question. Are you addicted to planning or committed to executing? Planning feels safe. It feels productive. But execution exposes weakness. Execution reveals gaps. Execution is uncomfortable. That is why many people stay in the motivational phase. It protects their ego. When you shift from motivation to systems, you accept imperfection. You allow messy progress. You focus on input rather than outcome. Instead of obsessing over results, track behaviors. Did you show up? Did you complete the minimum action? Did you protect the routine? Results will follow behavior, but behavior must become non-negotiable first. Another critical shift is long-term thinking. Motivation operates in short bursts. Systems operate across years. If you measure progress weekly, you may feel discouraged. If you measure annually, you see transformation. Most breakthroughs are invisible until they are obvious. The person who studies 1 hour daily may see no dramatic change in a month. But in a year, the difference is undeniable. The person who saves a small percentage consistently may feel no immediate reward. But over time, the accumulation becomes freedom. Motivation wants immediate emotion. Systems build delayed rewards, and delayed rewards build power. You do not need to eliminate motivation completely. It can be useful as a starting spark, but you must understand its role. It is the match, not the firewood. It is the push, not the structure. If you depend on it daily, you will always feel inconsistent. Instead, build something that runs without it. Create fixed times for important actions. Reduce friction before starting. Shrink the task until it feels almost too easy. Track your behavior, not just your results. Protect your identity through small daily evidence. When you do this, something subtle changes. You stop asking whether you feel motivated. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You begin moving automatically. And that is the real freedom. Because when your progress no longer depends on emotion, it becomes stable. When it becomes stable, it becomes powerful. And when it becomes powerful, it compounds. Motivation is a spark. Sparks are loud but brief. Systems are quiet, but they build empires. Stop chasing the feeling of starting. Start building the habit of continuing. Because in the end, success does not belong to the most inspired. It belongs to the most consistent. And consistency does not require motivation. It requires design.